Hello, how's it going everyone? So in today's video, we're going to be talking about how to look at or think about Andromeda and top of funnel prospecting versus conversions and how we kind of view accounts and why we see a lot of people on Twitter or X making mistakes and complaining about why Andromeda is so bad and there's so many things wrong with it and things are not making sense anymore. And so I want to give this general concept to you guys so you better understand what to look for in your accounts, and you can obviously see the proof of that on our other YouTube channel, CPro Growth. If you think that we're one of those woo-woo marketers that just makes up stuff and shows spreadsheets, we have actual account data on the other channel. So if you have any questions about that, you can see that over there for the evidence. But if you just want to understand the concepts, I'm going to start here. And so let's jump right into it. So the first thing that we have to understand is that when we are looking at an account, there is different types of customers that will affect your overall business, right? So keeping it super simple. New customers and return customers. Return customers have already bought from you. New customers have not bought from you. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy. Now, obviously, to grow a business, you need to get more new customers, right? Pretty simple. You need more new customers to get more people into your business, to make more money, to convert, and then obviously the mechanism that gets more new customers is how you grow the business as a whole. So that's how every single business works, unless they have a monopoly or they own the entire market already, kind of thing. So what that means though is that there's a mismatch in the signal that is given from the platforms. So a lot of people measure ROAS, or they measure in platform. We'll just leave it as ROAS for now. So it will give false positives to think if I have better ROAS, my business is healthier. And that is not the case. That is actually what I view in most cases the opposite. Now, not to say that if you have a really good ROAS, your business is not doing good, or if you have a really bad ROAS, your business is doing good. Not what I'm getting at here. It's just the KPI that we look at to get more signals as to what's going on in the entire funnel of the business. And so what tends to happen is ROAS looks really, really good, right? So I'll make like this a 5x ROAS. Let's just assume that a 5x ROAS is really good and a 1x ROAS is not good. Let's just assume that. And so we say, okay, we're at a 5x ROAS, awesome. So that's a signal that we take into account, right? So that's just what the campaigns say. Then we go back into the business, we say, okay, gross sales are up. Okay, perfect. So everything on a surface level looks good. However, what I tend to see happen is this 5x ROAS tends to focus more on return customers. So if we were to go over here, and I'll just do like return percentage, or return customers, do that, then we are essentially squeezing the funnel that we already have gotten, right? We've already got customers. It makes the account look better. Even though we're excluding all warm traffic inside of Meta or Google, we're still seeing a 5x ROAS on non-branded, accounts, all of that. This happens all the time. So I highly recommend, when it comes to e-commerce, checking your return customer sales inside of Shopify, because this 5x ROAS is extremely misleading. Now, we take a 5x ROAS, we say, okay, more return customers. If we drop this down to a 1x ROAS, what do we think is going to happen? More new customers. Now, the reason why this is happening is because it's a lot harder to get new customers. And the reason why is because you have to educate them. You have to essentially bring them through the entire funnel in the first place. And that's going to be less efficient than squeezing out return customers. Now, I would argue that it's actually better to squeeze out return customers via Klaviyo, like an email campaign, versus pushing a lot of ad spend towards it. Now, the other thing that I want to keep in mind too is that the algorithms are working off of this feedback down here. So in fact, let me actually do this, and I'll make this a little bit larger for you guys. Oh, actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have to do it this way. So when we throw in what the algorithm thinks it wants you to do, it wants you to get conversions, right? The goal is to get conversions. Which part of this funnel is going to get conversions? The bottom of funnel. That's going to be the part that's going to be the closest towards the end result. That's going to get the conversions. Therefore, it's going to look better and it's going to have a better T-ROAS. So we have this over here, right? So that's taken out when we're looking at ROAS. So we say, okay, if we go to the middle funnel, what are we looking at now? What is the idea behind the middle funnel? I would say that the middle funnel is a bit of a combination of spend and results, right? So we're kind of looking at that in-between phase, maybe higher touch points, but not necessarily a ton of reach, not necessarily a ton of spend, right? So it's a lot harder to see this, but we'll just say that it's in the middle of these two that we typically see inside of Meta. And then the other portion, and this is the most important part of the entire funnel because it feeds the entire funnel, is the top of funnel. Now, how do we locate where the top of funnel is, and how do we know the top of funnel is working in the first place? Two things. So the first thing is overall spend. So you look inside your Meta ad account and you say, okay, really high spend, good reach, which is indicative of high spend, and maybe not the best results. Typically, what that means is there's a lot of awareness that's being built from this that's trickling down to your bottom of funnel. What a lot of people complain about is they think that their top of funnel ad is not doing good, and so they turn it off. So now their funnel just looks like this. They have a middle of funnel ad that they're not really happy about, and then their bottom of funnel ad. So they've trimmed off their top of funnel. We'll just throw that over here. And now they're saying, well, okay, I have my middle of funnel ad. Oh my gosh. My middle of funnel ad now versus my bottom of funnel ad. My bottom of funnel ad's getting worse, so I need to get more efficient, right? It's got a, now instead of a 5x, it's now at a 4x ROAS versus this one over here that is at a 2x ROAS. And in fact, I'll make this just to prove the point further, is top of funnel, let's say, was a 1x ROAS, right? So you're trying to optimize towards better results, and the pain point is you're losing profitability in the back end of your business. So then what happens is you compare bottom of funnel ads versus middle of funnel ads. You're like, well, okay, I need to squeeze more out of this. We need to get a 4x ROAS. Even though we were at a 5x before, we need to go 4x. So then you trim out your middle of funnel, and you throw it over here, and now you're left with just your bottom of funnel, and instead of a 4x, now it's dropped down to a 2x. And so what people then say is, oh, Meta Andromeda, it doesn't work. Oh my gosh, what are we doing? This is a waste of money. I'm getting worse results, and I don't know what's going on. So I need to test more new creative. And so then they test in new creative that could be middle of funnel, top of funnel, whatever. It doesn't get good results again. So it comes back in and it's a 1x ROAS versus a 2x ROAS or a 3x ROAS, let's say. And they say, oh, okay, this one's working better. I'm going to trim this one out. So they trim it out again, and then it drops back down to a 2x. And then they're saying, oh, I need to create more creative. We need to get this better. Okay, they bring this other creative in here, and they compare the two against one another. This one's at a 1x, and then this one jumps back to a 3x. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm doing amazing. And then they say, oh, okay, let's optimize it. They take out the 1x, and then it drops back down to a 2x. And you kind of get the point where people do not look at, or a lot of media buyers don't look at the platforms as a standard funnel. They look at it from a reporting perspective. And that is an extreme flaw in the way that people measure inside of ads. And the reason why they do that is because they're assuming that ROAS is an accurate metric, which it is not. And so what tends to happen is people focus too much on the warm traffic side of the equation with a lot more return customers. Overall sales looks good temporarily, but it decays over a period of time. And so when it decays, you run into the issue of, how do I get myself out of this scenario in the first place? And that is, don't be afraid to leave on your top of funnel, super low result campaigns or ads. And the way that you measure this is something like ENMER or ENCAC. You look at your global new customer media efficiency, or AMER. It really just depends, acquisition media efficiency ratio, or your ENCAC, right? How much am I paying for a new customer across the board? New customers can be a lot cheaper and your gross sales can drop. That's okay. We're investing in the long term because we want to have the new customers that lead into the warm customers, and eventually things will catch up to one another, and your overall MER or overall efficiency will start to reflect those new customers moving into the LTV, into the bottom of funnel, so you can get more profitability from it. It's an investment. New customers is always an investment. And what most businesses do, because they know that it's a great investment, is they aim for break even on new customers so they don't have a cash flow issue, and they can keep scaling aggressively and eventually have that LTV be captured in the future. So super important. I see this happen all the time in accounts that have really good branding and really good LTV. They are, like I said, too familiar with the old way of doing things and think that Andromeda doesn't work, when in the reality is the way that they're measuring is just shown more and more, because Andromeda is working off the standard interest to building up the rapport to then closing the client or the customer in the first place. So hopefully you found this video simple. I want to try to make it as straightforward as possible to kind of give you guys perspective. Make sure that, like I said, just reiterating this point one more time, that NCAC and MER are very, very important, because you want to track the top of funnel impact. That's going to be the fastest feedback loop. And then obviously when it comes to LTV, that is going to be more shown by something like MER or just general profitability in the first place. A lot of this stuff people get confused about, and so I want to make sure that we are going back to basics here, because Andromeda is amazing and I love it. You just have to know exactly how to look at it. So anyways, thanks for taking on, guys, and I will see you in the next video.